I suppose it's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback, but wow, there is a whole series of what ifs in recent A's history.
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, A's fans. Decided to wind up a little bit there. And welcome to Locked On A's. This is the podcast. We talk about your Oakland A's as long as they are rooted in Oakland on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. By all means, call me Sully. I've been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade now, and this is my sixth season here as a member of the Locked On Podcast Network. And I'm normally, check me out right there, I'm normally at Locked On MLB, where I still host that show. I do 5 episodes of that and 5 episodes of this every single week. And I bring on to talk to you, A's fans, about this year, which is a troubling year for all of us, and hopefully we can have some nostalgia. But today is going to be a little bit of some, I don't know, maybe some harsh realities, but some of the moments that got away and may have changed A's history as we now know it. By the way, if you're following us every day, if you leave messages on social media, be sure to put on that hashtag #EverydayA's and let us know who's following us every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. I've been kicking around the idea of doing this episode for a couple of weeks now. And I had written a blog post maybe 13, 14 years ago, maybe even longer than that, about the innings that got away for the A's. And sadly, those innings have piled up over those last 14 years. Basically, I can't help but wonder if one of the things that has added to the the fall of our beloved A's in Oakland over the last bunch of years, I wonder some of it could have been turned with a single title. I can't tell you how many people I know who are A's fans who've witnessed fun summer after fun summer in Oakland. I mean, when you consider, like, just going back, go back 12 years, okay? Go back 12 years to 2012, one of the most stunning division titles I've ever seen in my life. The A's have been in the postseason 2012, 2013, 2014, 2018, 2019, and the COVID year. So in the last 12 seasons, the A's have been a playoff team in half of them. And they have this reputation of being this, they're pathetic, they're this, they're that, the other thing. I don't see the Mets doing that. I don't see the Angels doing that. And a couple of years the A's were in it. You didn't in 2014. Neither the Yankees nor the Red Sox were in the playoffs that year. I mean, there's been a lot of good reasons to have fun going to the Coliseum and rooting for players, even if they're not sticking around long. That's a big part of it. It's tough to get attached to players when you know they're just basically passing through. But I can't help but wonder if a title somewhere along the way would have helped. Because, as I said, some of my friends who are diehard A's fans, in the middle of a fun summer, say, hey, what do you think? What do you think? And a refrain I hear all the time is, yeah, but they're going to get bounced. Yeah, they're going to get eliminated. And when you think about the times the A's have won in Oakland, and I'm old enough to remember one of them, 89. But there's been, in the 4 World Series titles that the A's have won, there's been a weird cloud hanging over 3 of them. The first one they won, this one right there, the 72 World Series, one of the greatest World Series ever played, was a phenomenally dramatic, and everything was great. They upset the Big Red Machine, even without Reggie Jackson, who was injured. They won again in 73, but there was a weird cloud hanging over that about the Mike Andrews controversy. Look it up. Charlie Finley tried to basically humiliate infielder Mike Andrews, and it caused the players to almost forfeit game 3, and manager Dick Williams had enough, and he quit right after the World Series. I remember this story when Yogi Berra, who was the manager of the Mets, who lost the World Series that year, went to the A's locker room to congratulate manager Dick Williams. He said, "This doesn't look like a winning locker room." That was how somber it was. They won again in 74, but there was another weird cloud hanging over that because the Catfish Hunter controversy was hanging over the team, knowing that once the World Series was over, Catfish Hunter may become a free agent. He was the first major star to become a free agent. It was on a technicality. It was before free agency began. But there was a weirdness of, wait a minute, is this team about to be broken up? And then, of course, when they won in 89, there was an earthquake. I was in the Bay Area for that one. And while A's fans were thrilled that they won the World Series, there was not the jubilation you expect. So, in so many ways, even when the A's win, there's something dour about it. I can't help but think that if they'd won the title in one of those years, in one of the more recent years, there would be a little more enthusiasm, a little more amps behind the team. Kind of like if you're in the Bay Area, you saw that happen when the Giants finally won in 2010. But I think one of the big, and we're going to go through some of the what ifs, the times where things just slipped through their fingers where they were so darn close. But there is one other giant what if, and no pun intended there. When I talked the other day about the vote in San Jose that turned down the Giants, that for a while looked like was going to lead the Giants to leave the Bay Area altogether. And I talked yesterday about the Raiders coming back and basically destroying the Oakland Coliseum, and for what? But I was thinking about this the other day, that when Haas was in control of the family, and the Haas family was smart, they put money back into the team. It was the heyday of Oakland A's history. It was when the team was at its most powerful and most popular. And around the time that the Giants vote in San Jose was shot down, looked like the Giants were going to leave because of a ballpark issue, was the time that Camden Yards opened in Baltimore. And people saw, oh my God, if we got a new ballpark, even if the team sucks, people are going to want to see it. Cleveland almost immediately broke ground and built what became Jacobs Field to replace the mistake by the lake. And you saw, now Cleveland happened to tie in the building of their ballpark with the team exploding and being good. But you started seeing teams figure out, hey, people like going to a unique ballpark experience. And what's frustrating to me is that the Giants were leaving because they couldn't get a ballpark. The A's had the Coliseum. They didn't have to deal with the Raiders. The Raiders weren't there yet. They were not making the noise of moving back up yet. And you had a giant parking lot that you could build a brand new stadium, a brand new state-of-the-art baseball-only stadium that would have cemented the A's there. That window of opportunity was there. And I don't know if it occurred to the Haas family, if they thought like, hey, we got the Coliseum, what do we have to worry about? If the A's right then and there, when everyone learned what was happening, were able to make a unique baseball experience in Oakland, just as the Giants were scramming. The Giants, when they came back and they wound up signing Bonds for 93, they still didn't have a new stadium set up yet. It was a couple of years before they finally broke ground in Pac Bell Park. If the A's had broken ground and put a stadium up, they could have beaten the Giants to the punch. And it probably would have coincided, kind of like the way it did in Cleveland when the Jacobs Field coincided with the team getting really good. A new ballpark experience in the Bay Area that was fun and interesting would have coincided right around the time that Billy Beane finally put a winner back on the field in the late 90s, early 2000s. It stinks. It stinks with a capital stinks. But, all right, well, folks, buckle up, buttercups, because we're going to go through some of those games that happened in the 21st century as that elusive World Series title, hell, pennant, never arrived in Oakland, assuming it's not going to happen this year. Spring has sprung. Everything is growing. And do what also should be growing? The amount of money in your wallet right now. When you use Ibotta, you can watch your cash back grow with every purchase you make. Ibotta is a free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies to toys. So you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, just add your offers in the app, upload your receipt, and get real cash that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. Join over 50 million users and earn cash back every time you shop from over 2,700 brands and retailers, including your favorite grocery stores, Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 for just trying Ibotta by using code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB. Ibotta. Let's watch that cash grow back. Hey, this is the best time of the year to be a sports fan. Do you know why? You've got the NBA Finals. You got the Stanley Cup Finals. You got baseball going on every day. And you can bet on it all on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $200 of bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 when you can use to bet on anything from the NBA Finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the ballpark. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, it is America's #1 sports book. Hey, let me ask you a question. Where are you going for all of your sports news, your sports takes, your sports points of view? Now is the time to make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 streaming channel programmed to bring you the biggest sports stories. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. The A's have had 3 separate runs in the 21st century, 3 distinct groupings of teams, and all of them were fun, and none of them delivered a pennant. If they each had delivered a pennant, then my God, the A's would be a city of champions. This would be, the city of champions, everything like that. But here's the other thing. The A's have lost a do or die, either a game 5 of a division series or a 1-game playoff. They have lost a do or die game where if a victory would have led them to the next round in 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2018, and 2019. That's right. 9 times. 9 times this century, the A's have taken their fans to a game that when they wake up that morning, they think, if the A's win today, they move on. And every one of those 9 years, they gave him a roundhouse punch to the face. And that doesn't even include the Maglio Ordonez home run. That doesn't even include losing to the Astros in Dodger Stadium in a playoff game, a sentence that somehow makes sense. I'm not 100% sure how. I was thinking about what were the innings that would be worth replaying. In 2000, the first of the run, where the A's narrowly beat the Mariners to win the division and played a Yankee team in 2000. The Yankees were back-to-back World Series champs, but don't forget, they stumbled into the playoffs. They were on a horrible losing streak going into the playoffs, and the A's won game 1, put the Yankees on their heels, and had home field advantage. The Yankees came from behind to win games 2 and 3, and then Roger Clemens was on the mound in game 4 as the A's were ready to be eliminated, and they kicked the snot out of Roger Clemens. 11-1 was the final. And everyone had to fly back the next day. There was no travel day. The next day they had to play in Oakland for a 5th game, a winner take all. What inning would I want to replay? The first inning, because the A's were down 6 runs before they even came to bat. The Yankees just clobbered Gil Heredia and reliever Jeff Tam to be up 6, Yankees 6, A's coming up. Do you know what the final score of that game was? 7-5. The Yankees only scored 1 more run the rest of the game. The A's scored 5, had the tying run at the plate to end the game when Rivera got out of it. But if they had just held the Yankees in game 1, they were reeling a little bit. They didn't want to fly all the way back to Oakland. Their confidence was a little shot because of the horrible finish they had. Instead, they beat the A's. How'd they do? They went on to win the World Series. Okay, fine. But this was the first of many times for the A's, right? Now, 2001, I think we all know. We've seen it so many times. The flip. The A's punched the Yankees right in the face at games 1 and 2 in the Bronx. They're up 2-0 going back to Oakland. And what people forget was that game 3 was a really well-pitched game. And the final score was 1-0. And Jeremy Giambi was on first. Terrence Long, we all see it. He hits the ball in the right field corner. Shane Spencer throws a grotesquely horrible throw into home plate. And for reasons that I don't understand, Jeter was there because he's the most heads up. I don't care. Just shut up. I don't want to hear it anymore. Flips over. If Jeremy Giambi slides, it's 1-1. Probably they don't use Rivera in the 9th. Chances are that game goes to extra innings. Either way, they win that game. They move on. They sweep the Yankees. The great story of the Yankees going to 2001 World Series is swept away, and we have an ALCS between Seattle and Oakland. Does Seattle win that series? I don't know, and neither do you, and we'll never find out because Jeremy Giambi didn't slide. Now comes 2002, and there's so many innings you could pick from this one. This was the series that would have given Moneyball a happy ending. Now, in some ways, I think the second or third inning of game 1 is what I'd like to replay, because lest we forget, the A's took a 5-1 lead in the second inning against a Twins team that was just happy to be there. They were on the verge of being contracted the year before, and they're facing the powerhouse A's, who went on the 20-game winning streak and won 100 and some odd games, and it was just waiting for that rematch with the Yankees. Now we got their number. They're up 5-1 against the Twins. The Twins are an afterthought, and the Twins came back to win game 1. All right, it was a fluke because the A's won game 2 and game 3 easily. So just win game 4 in the Metrodome, all is good. But the Twins wound up winning that game. Fine. The A's had to go back to get that winner play all. And what else happened? The Angels beat the Yankees. The big, nasty Yankees were taken out of the equation. You thought, and I thought, all they had to do was beat this stupid Twins team, and then boom, World Series time. And the Twins wound up taking a 2-1 lead in the 9th, and that's the inning I want to replay. Do you know why? Because A.J. Pierzynski wound up hitting a 2-run home run, and David Ortiz, who at the time was with the Twins, drove in a few more, and then next thing you know, it's a 5-1 Twins lead going to the, instead of it being a 1-run game going to the 9th, it's a 4-run lead going into the 9th. It was stupider than stupid. And then what happened in the 9th? Mark Ellis hit a 3-run homer for the A's, making it a 1-run game. They got another runner on. The winning run was at the plate. And a pop-up to the first base. And we saw the scene in Moneyball. Hold the Twins to 0 runs in the top of the 9th, and I guarantee you they're winning that. They're walking off. Play Celebration Cool in the Gang. They wind up playing the Angels. They may beat the Angels. Then there's a rematch with the Giants. How'd that work out? Then in 2003, which is arguably the most agonizing of all of them for the A's and the most underrated, because, again, they took a 2-0 lead in the series against Boston. and you had the walk-off bunt in game 1, and they kicked the snot out of Wakefield in game 2. Great. Then they miss. There's 2 plays at the plate in game 3 in extra innings where Eric Burns misses the plate, and Trot Nixon hits the walk-off home run. Then they have a lead late with 2 outs in the 8th inning, and David Ortiz, who wasn't yet Big Papi yet, and Keith Folk on the mound in the 8th. Big Papi hits the double into the gap, and the winning run comes in. Fine. Winner take all. Duel between Pedro and Barry Zito. At the time, Manny Ramirez was in a slump. He hits a 3-run home run. It's 4-1. And the A's cut it to 4-3. And they have Derek Lowe on the mound, who was up and down, and Terrence Long. Well, Ken Maka lifted Jermaine Dye in a key moment. Future World Series MVP Jermaine Dye. Ken Maka lifted him for Adam Melhuse in a key situation. With 1 out, the bases loaded, bottom of the 9th, a base hit wins this series for the A's. And Melhuse struck out, looking. And then Terrence Long struck out, looking. And there you go. And in 2006, where they wound up getting swept by the Tigers in the ALCS, their only ALCS appearance in this whole time, I got to say the inning I would replay is game 1, top of the 3rd, because it all rested on Barry Zito. They finally got past the division series. Barry Zito was home on the mound, okay? And there were 2 outs, nobody on in the 3rd inning. Zito looked ready to have another stellar outing like he did in the playoffs against Johan Santana in the division series. And then suddenly the wheels came off. He let up a home run to Brandon Inge. He let up a double. He walked the bases loaded. He let up another run. And the A's couldn't get back. And next thing you know, the A's got clobbered, and they wound up getting swept in the series, being capped by the Magli Ordonez home run. Yeah, I know some of this is painful, but in all of those years I just mentioned, that group could have won the World Series in any one of those years. But do you know what? It doesn't get much better. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app. With more than 5 million members, it's the most fun and exciting way to get on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more than or less than on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. With PrizePicks, you can turn $10 into $1,000 with a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a PrizePicks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stats, projection, and then you're locked in. And PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app, and you can get in on the daily action with your friends and be part of the PrizePicks community today. Now, there's always action on PrizePicks, and this is the perfect time to try out something new as basketball is winding down. Make sure to try out esports this month, because for every Wednesday and Saturday in June, if your lineup doesn't win, you'll get your entry fee back. You can choose from Counter-Strike 2, Call of Duty, League of Legends, and more. PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including right here in California, Texas, and in Georgia. And PrizePicks even offers injury insurance so that your lineups can stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For baseball games, if you have a player who registers 2 plate appearances or fewer, PrizePicks will have your back and not count as a loss. Now, download the app and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Once again, download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. Do you know what? It's that easy. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channel app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day, with the local extras of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channel app. I won't go in as much detail. I mean, we probably have a fresher sense of our memory. 2012, when they stunned the Rangers on the final day of the season, what pops into my head is Miguel Cabrera up in the seventh inning, or I'm sorry, the eighth inning, and Coco Crisp comes in and tries to make a fancy basket catch, which would have ended the inning. Instead, he dropped the ball, and 2 runs came in to score. Yes, I know Coco Crisp became the great hero with the walk-off hit in Game 4, but making that catch would have ended the inning and the threat. I know it wound up being a walk-off win on a sac fly, but that was a key moment. They would have had the lead going into the eighth. That was the bottom seventh. I'm sorry. They would have gone the lead into the eighth and have avoided Miguel Cabrera, the Triple Crown winner, and set it up to have a Grant Balfour save. I keep thinking about that inning, that wound up letting 2 runs in, a 2-out fly ball to center field that Coco Crisp tried to hot dog, and 2 runs came in on that, and what became a 1-run game in a 5-game series. You know, the inning in 2013, again, there was the A's had the lead in an elimination game. They could have eliminated the Tigers. And friend of the podcast, Sean Doolittle, unfortunately didn't have his best outing, but in Game 4 and wound up setting up a Game 5 with Verlander on the mound. And nobody was going to beat Verlander, but 2013, I can't stop thinking about the first inning of Game 1, because like in 2000, the A's got behind the 8 ball early. They were down 3 runs before they came to bat when Bartolo Colon got rocked. And that game, final score was 3-2. 3-2. Those are all the runs the Tigers got that inning, that game. 3 runs in the first, that's it. And the A's got 2 runs. Things could have turned around there. In the wild card game in 2014, which I think is the single most agonizing game, because I think, in each of these cases, I mean, these are all teams that could have gone far. And that 2014 team, the 2 innings that people will think about are the 9th inning, where the A's were 2 outs away from eliminating the eventual American League champion Royals. And that was the Royals rallied in the 9th. And then, of course, we all have the memory of Johnny Gomes and Sam Fogg colliding in left field. If they had caught that, that would have been the second out with nobody on. And instead, the Royals rallied, in the image of, oh God, that image of the Perez grounder past Donaldson. But in many ways, the inning that I keep thinking about that game was the 8th. Bob Melvin's a great manager, but that was not his best game as a manager. John Lester had a 7-3 game in the 8th inning. And I guess his idea was he wanted Lester to go all 9. But he had Gregerson, he had Doolittle, he had his bullpen setup, Otero. And if he had taken Lester out with a 7-3 lead, things would have been better. But instead, Lester never could throw over to first. And the Royals were able to run at will on him. And the Royals wound up scoring 3 runs that inning, making it a 1-run game. Instead of it being a 7-3 game with 4 runs to play with, it suddenly became a 1-run game, and every pitch being doom. And if they had just said, hey, Lester, you gave us 7 innings. We're up 7-3. It's the bullpen's job right now. Because once any runner got on base, it seemed like the Royals had a track team that they could bring off the bench as pinch runners. And they all were running at will off of John Lester. They lost that one. The wild card game in 2018 looked over early when Judge hit a huge home run. But do you know what? The score was only 2-0 going into the 6th. But a rough inning by Fernando Rodney turned into a 6-0 game. It was over. The last gasp of A's fandom, and many could argue, when the 50,000 showed up for the 2019 wild card game. And while the A's were behind the 8 ball early, they left the bases loaded in the first. They could have punched right back and turned into a slugfest. Instead, they stranded the bases loaded, and that was that. And of course, in the COVID year, they got past the White Sox in the division series, and in front of cardboard cutouts in Los Angeles, they had a 3-2 game against the Astros that quickly turned to a 5-2 game because of back-to-back homers, and that was it. This is a rough walk down memory lane, but do you want, I'm convinced in any one of those years, 2000, to all those years, especially 2012, 2013, 2014, if they had won the World Series in any of those years, I think we're having a different conversation. I think we're having a different look at A's fandom. But instead, here we go. Will Sacramento get another title? Get their first title? Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something if they really do only spend 3 years in Sacramento but win a World Series there? What do you do? Oh, well, let's try to have fun anyway. It's been a fun ride. So follow us, and sorry if this was a rough episode for some of you, but we got to take our medicine. So follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Taking a rough walk down memory lane. This has been Locked On A's. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.